and welcome to everybody. Okay, so we're talking about speaking up, and it's really interesting. My journey with neurodiversity and neurodivergency being diverging from neuronormativity is that I identified as a highly sensitive person for almost a decade. And only recently, I'm talking very recently, several weeks ago, I was diagnosed with both autism and ADHD. And so I've got a whole new lens looking at this conversation. There's also ADHD in my family. I've got high empaths. I have friends with kids with dyslexia. I've coached, as Raphael said, I've worked with hundreds and actually thousands of people over the years. And many of my clients came to me for productivity coaching because of executive function challenges. And so I've been up close and personal, and I know that with neurodivergency, a lot of what might be easy to do in the world can be we have a lot of challenges with our environment and sensory challenge, for example, as well as executive function. And we might need to have the environment shift a little bit to feel really, truly accessible to us. And so I have long been someone that speaks up. And I learned in my journey to the autism diagnosis that this is actually a trait of autism, speaking up for social justice. And so I'm really, really love that that's something I can now understand where it came from or how it's tied to my way of being. And because I am so very, very, very comfortable speaking up for what I need, I have found through presentations and coaching that people resonate with things I've done in meetings, in my life, speaking up for what I need. And it really resonates, and it's meant to be inspiring and helpful. What I will say is that I know it's not all easy for everyone. So let me get into this presentation a little bit, but I want to plant one question for you to think about. What's something something that you want, but you are not asking for? What's something that you want, but you're not asking for? And I think everybody's got something. So I want you to think about that. And that is great fodder for conversation. So either joining us on stage or sending a DM to Raphael and asking for a question to be raised anonymously. We welcome all the questions. But let's talk about why. Why is it important to ask? And my mission is, and if you go to my website, clarekumar.com, you'll see it right there. It's to help stop the squandering, the unintentional squandering of human potential. And I think when we have design challenges, culture challenges, we have a lot of things that invite us to opt out, burn out. I heard somebody use the term flare out this weekend in a conversation. And I don't think that's fair. So we're already at a no if we're not we're going to ask or challenge it. We're going to stay at that no. And honestly, you'll see me use the hashtag sometimes on LinkedIn and in social media saying we deserve better. Hashtag we deserve better. We deserve to be designed for, we deserve our environments to be accessible. And I think finding the path to asking for it is the only hope in some cases to be able to have what we need to be successful, to make our best contributions, and therefore really lead fulfilling lives. So, yeah, why is it important to ask for? You're already at no, and you deserve better. You deserve better. It's also, I think, a form of self-love and compassion. And if you look at Kristen Neff's work, which we talked about before in an earlier session, it's the sense of fierce self-compassion to set boundaries for ourselves and to ask for what we need, to be that provider energy. Kristen talks about sort of the nurturing yin and fierce yang of self-compassion. And we need to have both of these things so that we really can create an environment in which we can thrive. But you know what? It's not always easy to share. It's not easy to ask. And so what are we noticing about that? Well, our culture does not celebrate saying, I need help. Would you help me? It celebrates hustle, grit, suck it up, pull another all-nighter, it promotes self-compromise, not self-compassion. And I think that makes it difficult. Add to that, we have an expectation of our own competence. And I saw this so much with my productivity clients, this sense that, we're just expected to be able to organize. When I was organizing in people's homes, I would go in, and sometimes, often, the female partner in a heterosexual relationship, the female partner would be trying to hire me for help getting organized. And many, many times, their partner, often male, not always, but their male partner would veto their need and just expect them to be able to have all the organization skills, and not hire out for it. And that was the saddest thing I found when I was decommissioned because of lack of support from a partner. So, this expectation of competence from society around organization and productivity, it's a real thing. And let me tell you, the world is more complex. There are more systems, more points of communication. We're under cognitive overload, whether you have executive function challenge or not. It's more increasingly difficult to juggle everything, navigate, and increasingly overwhelming. And we all actually need help. So I think that expectation is a challenge. And because there's an expectation, we can feel shame. And I call it the shame shutdown. That moment we feel shame, we then can be very hesitant to find our voice and speak up for what we need. And so, if this is resonating with you, let's talk about a situation in real life. Bring me a comment or a question, and join in the conversation, and let me know if this is resonating with you. So far, our culture is not celebrating asking for help, it's hustle and grit, the expectation of confidence, the shame shut down. How about people pleasing? How about our big desire to just keep everybody happy, not rock the boat, aversion to conflict? Huge reasons why we shy away from speaking up for what we need. We don't want to be a bother. We just want to be fly under the radar and not bring attention to ourselves. We may not feel that we're worthy of speaking up for. And this is where self worth can really be really tough, because you might know very well what you need, but you might not think you matter enough. And I want to say right now, you matter. And figuring out how to build self confidence, look at the situations where you were able to perform at your best, anchor into all that goodness, and let's find a path for you forward to speak up. But I do want to acknowledge that it's not always easy. And then here's a huge one: a fear of repercussion. I Not only do I have a real understanding and path with neurodivergency in my life, I also have an invisible illness. And for 7 years, I could not voice with confidence to say, I have an autoimmune disease, I have multiple sclerosis. I couldn't say it because I was afraid that people wouldn't hire me. I have since learned that no, I'm very hireable. I am still very capable. I am living quite well with the disease in the scheme of things, thankfully, gratefully. But I've also found that sharing has unlocked compassion and understanding for many people. So it's a real conduit for compassion. And I do think, though, that you have to understand the environment that you're in. It's not always. I had a sexual harassment, verbal harassment situation in my early 20s. And I spoke up then, and I was invited to keep it very quiet. And it didn't feel like a safe thing to do. They found 13 more people with complaints after I raised mine. And so it was very interesting to recognize that it didn't feel like quite a safe thing to do, but boy, was it important that I did that. I think reading the room and understanding where you're at is, and who you're operating with and the culture, is really important. But if you're at the point where the consequences of not speaking up are affecting your health and it's negatively building, out of self love and taking care of who you are, there's a real a real impetus, a real drive to be able to speak up and find a path to do that. So hopefully you can find a path around this fear, but it is one of the biggest things to keep us quiet. Here's the other thing. We might also find that legislatively we don't have the support we need. While we look at Roe versus Wade overturning, we don't have support for certain things now in society in certain states. So when you don't have support for what you need, you might feel disempowered and that you can't ask for what you need or can't find a path. But we have to acknowledge what we need and find a path forward. Here's the last challenge that I think can make it difficult is we haven't found the words. We don't have the vocabulary or the clarity with which to articulate what we need. And it's very interesting in this neurodivergency conversation. As a highly sensitive person, I found that the HSP trait, which is not a disorder, the HSP trait has not often been included in neurodivergency. And I was always popping up my hand at conferences and asking a question of the organizers, well, why isn't it on the slide here? Why isn't this trait that affects 1 in 5 people on the slide? And when I left my corporate job in 2008, I didn't have the language around high sensitivity. I didn't know about it. I certainly didn't have a connection to autism then. It just came very recently. And I simply didn't have language that might have been more effective to share it. And along with language, I would say that finding a way to talk about what we want to talk about with the right level of emotion in it that doesn't shut others down is really important. So those vocabulary and clarity are both important. I'm going to move on to talk about how to decide when to speak up shortly, but I do want to take a break for a second here and invite Raphael to remind everybody of where we are and what we're doing today.
Thank you, Claire. So, this is Proactivity for Neurodivergent Professionals with Clare Kumar, experienced executive coach specializing in proactivity and inclusivity. Today, we're talking about speaking up for what you need and the challenges that exist in it, like the fear of consequences, shame shutdown, and the lack of self worth. Make sure to follow her on Fishbowl so you don't miss any talks in the series. And remember that we want to hear from you. We want to hear you talk. We want to speak with you, discuss whatever, all of the synonyms that refer to it, and keep that raise your hand button close and intervene when you can.
All right. Thank you, Raphael. So I'm going to take a second here. And one of the things we do in coaching is create space for conversation. And sometimes space is created with a little silence. So this is not going to be dead air, but I'm going to stop talking for just a few seconds to allow you to think about a question and raise your hand. And I'd love to bring somebody on right now in conversation or send that DM to Raphael. Did that feel awkward? Did that feel like a long time? It was about 7 seconds. And that generally, in a room, if you're in a room with people and wanting to hear from more voices, that might be the kind of time it takes for someone to realize, gosh, this feels awkward and come and join the conversation. So, Raphael, I'm going to ask you, did we get any questions pop up?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. I want to go back and invite you to think about a situation that you want to speak up about. Is it for more flexibility to be able to continue to work from home? Is it for a quieter space to work in the office? Is it for more time to process information before you're expected to reply? What kinds of accessibility items are there for you that will help your performance? If you could see me right now, you can see I'm standing up. I'm not sitting at my desk. And something that helps me be more productive and comfortable and avoid a lower back pain is a standing desk. So I'm lucky I work for myself and I've got myself a standing desk. But is that something that you need perhaps in your office to take better care of you? So I see so many people on this call. I see Margie, I see Kenya, Soma, Bradley, Samantha, Megan, Brian, Tanya, so many people there. I would love to invite you one more time to come up on stage and let me know if there's something that you would like to speak up about.
Okay, Claire. We have an anonymous question. It says,
Great.
What if we don't know what we need to ask for? How do we discover that and prioritize our needs?
Oh, thank you so much for that question. That brings me to the work I'm most involved in right now, and I would love to share with you. You're right. Not everybody knows what they need. And I've actually created a survey questionnaire to help you develop what I call your work style profile. And the work style profile questionnaire can be found at clarekumar.com/work style profile. If for any reason you don't find it, just email me, claire@clarekumar.com, Instagram, wherever you want to find me, Fishbowl Live. Send me a message here on Fishbowl and say, please send me the work style profile, because this gives you an opportunity for self reflection. It's a Google form. You go through it in about 15 minutes, and you get to think about who you are and what really helps you. Take a few minutes to really think about when you shine and when things haven't gone well, what might be at play there. It'll ask you questions about your favorite time of day. It'll ask you questions about your preference for communication, for solving problems and dealing with information. It'll ask you about temperament traits, sensitivity. There's questions in here that I invite you to reflect on. And then you will get, also, you have to, I apologize for this, you have to sign up on my list so that I can send you the template email afterwards. And in the questionnaire as well, you have to give your email again so that Google can give you your questionnaire results back. You will take that email from Google and take the template that I give you and put them together in a one-page summary that is really going to be your guide to what you look for in the conditions that invite your best work. You get an opportunity to reflect on any learning challenges, disabilities, conditions, ways of being, and personal situations like the people you care for, the pets you care for, all of the life aspects that can influence you being your best at work. And I know any mom or dad out there with kids has to make sure their kids are well taken care of. Otherwise, we can't focus at work. For those of you who are going to check out the YouTube video later, well, we'll see it on Fishbowl Live or clarekumar.com/fishbowl. I just showed you Ellie. Ellie is one of the two cats that depend on me, and he's here for most conversations. And so just want to recognize that when we talk about bringing our whole selves to work, we have to be able to articulate that, what that means. We have to know it for ourselves, and we have to be able to communicate it. So please, I invite everyone. It's free. I want this to be shared broadly and widely and be a tool for thousands and thousands of people to use to help articulate what invites your best performance. And from there, you can choose how to share it with your colleagues. If you're a student, with your classmates, if you're a leader, with your teams. And then I have a program to help leaders and teams figure out how to co-create the way they work. But my big goal is for individuals to be able to succinctly describe what invites their best performance. So thank you so much for that question. And I see Natalia is joining us right now, and I would love to have you share if you've got a question or a comment.
Hi, yeah, thank you. My question would be, how would somebody ask for accommodations, especially re-entering the office setting? So I haven't worked in an office in 6 years and currently
Mhm.
in the process for jobs that would require to go back a few days a week. So like how would one approach, for example, requesting an ergonomic setup or
Mhm.
maybe arriving at the office at 9, given like a
Mhm.
commute and stuff like that?
Yeah, thank you so much, Natalia, for the question. It's I think what we want to do is look at how we're presenting ourselves in a broad context. And when you're new, it's extra tricky because you haven't put any money in the bank, so to speak. You haven't made deposits in for people to know that they can trust you. And it almost feels like a withdrawal to make an ask. But I think it is a very good time to have the discussions about how you work best. And I think that is exactly the way to set it up. It's to say that I am really committed to performing very well. And here are some of the things that I've found help me do that. They help me keep sustaining my energy. They help me keep me performing at my best. And you can see if you're what, sorry, you can't see Natalia, but Elliot is trying to nudge my phone out of my hand now. He wants to get some serious attention here. But Elliot, you just stay on your carpet over here because I'm busy right now. So Natalia, I think this framing of it, connecting it to your productivity. So I'm always looking at this intersection of productivity and inclusivity. And if you can make the connection to, oh, you know what, a standing desk that prevents backache for me. Helps me keep my energy up. I'm really going to benefit. Tie it to your performance, and they should be easier asks. Most accommodations for people with disabilities have been less than $500 and incredibly effective. I can't guarantee you that the person listening is going to fully understand always. So I think there is always the chance that you come into communication with someone who is not compassionate and doesn't understand. But I believe in positioning it, finding a few ways to say it, connect to your value. And then ultimately, sometimes we have to come to the point where we have to really weigh out whether a situation is helpful for us or really toxic. So keep trying to negotiate, ask for what you need, connect it to your drive and commitment to doing good work. And I think that's the strongest way to put that forward.
Thank you. I really liked how you said everything, not only like about like, yeah, given that I'm new, like I haven't made deposits. So all of that was super helpful. And as you said, framing it like what's the benefit, right? Keeping me energized. I've seen what works. So I took some detailed notes for when that time comes. And then the last question I had was, can you repeat the URL for that survey that you were talking about?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my website, go to clarekumar.com. And Claire, just to remind you, if you're not seeing my name there printed on the screen, Claire has no I. So I joke I have no third eye. So ClareKumar.com. And you could /work style profile. I'll also tell you how to get it through the menus. If you go to clarekumar.com and look at Happy Space at the top, if you click
Yeah.
on Happy Space, right underneath Happy Space, you'll see Work Style Profile, and you'll be able to, no charge, just sign up with your email there, and you'll be able to get that template that you can work through as well as the questionnaire. And just so everybody knows, there'll be a little of commentary on the introduction there because I am hoping to build an understanding of what people want and the variety of things people want to do their best work, and then be talking to organizations on stages, letting CEOs and leaders know that, for example, right now I can tell you 9% of people want an 8 a.m. meeting, only 9%. So you can know, Natalia, you're not alone in wanting that 9 a.m. or later start. But isn't it helpful to understand what the perspective is, that there's variety out there? And that's my big job, is to be on stages helping leadership understand that they need to understand their employees and make room for customizing how work gets done and letting that personalization of productivity happening. So I do hope you check it out. And by all means, keep in touch and let me know what you think. I'm just about to lock it down and start amplifying it so that we get to thousands of people and I can write a white paper on this. So very excited, and thank you very much for asking for that too, and for that earlier question that reminded me I'm supposed to talk about this because this is so connected to what I want to do, and it's very connected to this conversation because it's the beginning point of knowing for what you want to speak up. So thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So I'd like to continue on a little bit here about how do you decide when to speak up? How do you decide when it's worth it? And I think it's especially when it feels uncomfortable, it's really looking at this cost benefit analysis. And so if you're starting a new job, the benefit of setting the boundaries and setting a structure that you're happy to operate in is so huge at the beginning of work, especially at that point, because I say start as you mean to continue. Don't try and start one way, kill yourself trying and then try to claw back. It's like trying to charge everybody $100 a month for a membership fee and then saying, "Oh, sorry, it's going to be 200 now," or to try and charge more. Here, we don't want to ask for more later. We want to set the tone to say we deserve respect and we know how we work and we'd love that to be honored. And also, hey, what do I need to know about you? And that's where the total teamwork program, which is the team version of work style profile, that it goes into a total teamwork model that gets leaders and teams talking about how they work so that everybody gets respected. So it's not just you asking, it's you caring about your leader. It's your leader caring about you. It's you and your colleagues caring about each other. And I can think of nothing more important than when working with a group of people to be able to identify what's going to help bring out the best of everyone. So huge benefits in at this particular time. If it's a different issue, looking at what the cost of speaking up might be, and really thinking through, gosh, is it a cost I'm prepared to make? Sometimes dancing with the what's the worst that could happen situation is very, very, very empowering. So one of it, one of well, I'm making up words. Out Looking at the benefit and how it outweighs the cost is can help you find your voice. When the risk of staying in the status quo is simply too great, when you know, and this is related, it's the same thing, but when you really realize that whatever you're holding on to is actually not serving you. When I chose to finally leave my corporate job, it was after a year of speaking up, consistently speaking up. And this is why I say you never know when you're going to run into someone who's just going to be that roadblock. As my friend who's now a CEO says, you're playing the leader lottery and you don't know what their reaction is going to be. So I tried for a year to negotiate flexibility working from home, and my leadership was not in favor. They wanted me to be in the office no matter where they were. And I had two small kids. The commute was about an hour plus each way by the time I did daycare drop offs. And I start my podcast, Happy Space Podcast, episode number 1, with my realization that Birkenstocks and pantyhose don't mix. And I learned the hard way. I took a tumble down a flight of stairs. And after uncovering bruises for the next 2 weeks, I realized, the risk of staying is too great. And I knew I needed to make a change. I think if you know your boundary and you get your mind wrapped around what are the consequences, then you can be okay with the worst that can happen. And maybe the worst you think can happen right now is you're prepared to walk. But I can tell you, I left my company and I'm living a much happier life, much more fulfilled and much more aligned with who I am. I left my marriage in 2016 and I'm much happier. And so some of these changes can be really hard to make. But if you're taking care of you, then maybe, just maybe, they're worth speaking up for and navigating this discomfort to go get what you need to take care of you. So yeah, assessing what the worst that can happen is really, really a power tool to step into some confidence speaking up. Any more questions, Raphael? I'm going to throw it back to you for a second. Any more questions?
Nah, right now, no. Well,
Okay.
no, not yet. Okay.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. We are in the 4th episode in the series, Productivity for Neurodivergent Professionals, and we're talking about speaking up for what you need. And with neurodivergency in particular, and all of our sensitivities, and whether we're neurodivergent or not, people have needs that vary: temperament based, learning preferences, leadership preferences, all of these things. We have different preferences. And I think it's really important. I've mentioned a couple of them, but I want to share a couple of wins and losses I've had when sharing. So I think about work. I told you that I was in a position for a year and lobbying hard for the ability to have flexible work. Didn't work, didn't get it, left. But, I don't know how many interviews I've had in the media being able to talk about negotiating successfully. So overall, it's turned into a bit of a win. I've had lots of radio conversations and some TV segments as well, talking about the ability to have flexibility. I have a whole t-shirt line actually too on T Public. And if you go to clarekumar.com and you go to the products page, you'll see the inclusivities, and there are messages on t-shirts to actually, it's a form of speaking up. It's showing off what you stand for, and there are such statements there as flexibility is inclusivity, productivity is personal, autonomy is for adults. There's several there, and we can wear our values on our sleeves or on our shirts, if you will. And that's a form of speaking up as well. A few other situations. I've been in swimming pools where we have a beautiful pool in Toronto. It's a 50-meter pool, and half as wide along. And when they set up lane swims, they don't actually have lanes. We're going across the width of the pool, and it's really dangerous. And I've spoken up to have the lifeguards pay more attention. I've spoken up to an individual who's swimming his head directly aiming for my head because he wasn't paying attention to where he was in the pool. I've done a lot of speaking up in the pool for my own safety and for the safety of others. And I've been doing it over email again because our pool is about to open. And it's the same laneless lane swim. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but I always keep speaking up. I've had to fire a neurologist in a situation where they told me I was not able to change my neurologist. And I have advocated there with the nursing assistant, and also then had a follow-up meeting with the director of their team, giving them some feedback. I spoke up in my marriage and it was not effective to get what I need. So I had no choice but to leave. And I spoke up numerous times in a course I was taking, and I wrote about this on my blog, clarekumar.com/blog. And it's all about when a watermark on reading material for the course made the course impossible for me to consume in a written way. And I don't like having to watch all the videos again. I like the written word and I like to process it without noise. And for me, 8 watermarks across the page was visual noise. And I wrote about how that was a human rights issue. And it still is. I probably still have one more letter in me to write about that, to see if the person who ran the program has been enlightened at all. Maybe more work to do there or not, but these are just some examples of places where I've chosen to speak up, but I speak up all over the place. At a restaurant, could you turn down the music so I can have a conversation without shouting? Could you dim the lights in this space because those lights might trigger a migraine? Could you please clear the path around here so people don't trip? I was in a tennis lesson yesterday and the exercise got really overwhelming. And after the ball came off my racket and smacked me in the face, which was really my own fault. The teacher said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just finding it overwhelming with so many balls at the same time on the court." She was feeding to both sides, and it gets overwhelming for me. After that, she took the drills down. We were still all getting a great training, but the exercise she chose to run was less overwhelming. So there are ways based on what you need to continue speaking up. And I thought I'd just, bring some of the real life and work examples to life. I think here's the oh, hang on. I can see this is why we have Raphael. He's waving at me, which is great because I can respond to that much better than the little pieces on the screen. Raphael, what would you like to say?
And that we have another anonymous question.
Love it. Let's absolutely take that now. Perfect timing.
Okay, so this person is looking for suggestions on how to ask for help regarding time management and any ideas on what to ask for. Any tools that help with time management in the workplace?
Oh, I love that question. Thank you. Right up my alley. Um, Gosh, what I have found as a productivity coach is that productivity is very, very personal, and that you have to find systems that work for you. You can do a lot of inquiry and trying different tools out. If there's an opportunity for your organization to make some resources available to you to get one on one coaching, that I would say is the cream of the crop. Someone who can help you tune into how you work. If that's not possible, let me give you a couple of questions to think about right now that might be valuable for you. No, well, first of all, let me invite you to listen to the replay from the second episode because we had a whole hour long conversation about it. And at fishbowl.com/live, if the link is not there today, the right now it will be by the end of today because Raphael knows we're waiting for it. We're going to put the link there to the second episode, and it's all about time management. And we had a lot of questions in that as well. And I did talk about this in that segment. I talked about you understanding your relationship to time and what you've noticed already helps you bring your attention to your intentions. So, having a calendar you refer to that is just, it's got to be something you have with you. So, I don't care whether it's digital or paper, whatever it is, it has to be with you and it has to be something you use. Same thing with your notebooks or how you're capturing information. You have to have systems that you're really happy to use, and everybody's different. So while somebody might like typing everything into their computer, somebody might be saying, "Oh, I'm good on my phone." Somebody else might say, "I need a notebook." So I can't tell you there's one way, but I can tell you honing into how you operate with time, what's worked already is really important, and also identifying where the challenges for you with respect to time come from. I invite you to turn all your notifications off except for reminders to bring your attention to an intention that is really time sensitive. So I had an alarm for this meeting, so I knew to meet Raphael a little bit early, so and not keep you guys waiting, right? So whenever you need to show up and you need to remember something, that's the time you want to be interrupted. But you do not want interruptions any other time because you need to allow your brain to go into better places. That right there is going to be one of the biggest productivity boosters you can give yourself. I hope that was helpful. Definitely clarekumar.com/fishbowl, and you'll get the replay. You'll also get the other resources that I put in that spot. The same thing will apply for today. Eventually, we will put the replay, and we'll put a link to this video as well there. So you'll be able to watch this again if you want and see the slides. And yeah, I think that's about all I would like to say on that. I've got a little bit more content to share, but let me just check in with you, Raphael. Is that good for questions, or do we have any more right now?
We don't have any right now, but
Okay.
taking a chance in these last 15 minutes, I'm going to remind the new people that have come to the room what this is about. This is Productivity for Neurodivergent Professionals with our host, Clare Kumar, founder of Happy Space, experienced executive coach, specializing in productivity and inclusivity. And this is actually the fourth conversation in the whole series, and it's about speaking up for what you need and the challenges that exist in it, like the fear of consequences, shame shutdown, and the lack of self-worth. Make sure to follow Claire on Fishbowl so you don't miss any talks in the series. And remember that we want to keep hearing from you. We don't have any more anonymous questions right now, but if you want to hop on in the conversation, you're welcome.
Thank you, Raphael. Excellent. Yeah, and I think I do want to just give an invitation for you all as well to check out the podcast, Happy Space Podcast. It's Happy Space. You'll find it in the major podcast players. And I examine productivity and inclusivity there. And Harold Taylor is a gentleman I talked to. He's a guru. He's going to be 90 next month. And he's a fabulous individual talking about productivity and his relationship to sensitivity and getting things done. I interview Peter Shankman, who is a well known entrepreneur and very ADHD proud. I talk to Ludmila Praslova, who just wrote The Canary Code, all about neurodiversity at work. And we talk about autism and neurodiversity. And I talk about autism with Melanie Diesel in an episode with her too. And that's where all these light bulbs went off for me around autism and that, oh my gosh, this might actually apply to me. And it's interesting because I've always thought, since I can look people in the eye and I'm quite extroverted socially, that autism could never apply. Well, there's a whole lot else to it. And I did proceed to have a formal diagnosis, and it was conclusive. So, really interesting as, as a neurodivergent individual listening to always be curious and learn more and more about this world because there's so much overlap here as well, and especially with sensory sensitivity. So I want to come back to now. This is the last section of my slides, and this is the section about raising your chances of success when you speak up. And the first thing I think will sabotage success is if you are speaking up for what you need in a manner that's so loaded with emotion, and it could be fear turning into anger, into frustration, just so loaded with emotion of many kind. A lot of emotion can often put people off and they don't know how to handle it, whether it's tears, whether it's fear, whether it's anger. It can be somewhat repellent unless you've got someone who's so grounded in who they are and centered themselves. It can be difficult for them to make room for all of that. So one of the first things I invite you to do is really calm your amygdala, your brain that's really jumping into fight, flight, or freeze mode and not helping you. And really, if you're speaking up, you're kind of in fight mode. But I want to bring you back from fight mode to be just the best version of you mode, taking care of you and advocating for who you are. So calming the amygdala by first noticing the emotion that you're feeling, put a name on that emotion. And I've built out a whole process. I called it engage the emotions. It's notice, name, normalize, and nurture. And I'm going to be starting to write on Substack. Hey, Raphael, that's news to you, but I'm going to start writing on Substack shortly. And I'm going to put this body of work there as I start to write the book in excerpts on Substack. And so that's a place. There's no link yet, but if there will be, I'll probably link it to my name there. So I'll be writing about that. And I think this is all key information to really help us be successful, asking for what we need. Here's another opportunity. And this came from me reading my friend Tamsin Webster's book, Find Your Red Thread. She's brilliant. She's brilliant. She's got another book coming out, which is What You Can't Unhear. I think it's Say What You Can't Unhear. It's a new book coming out later this year, I believe. And she taught me that the way to be convincing in persuasive argument is to appeal to common values. So when I go into organizations and I want to talk about inclusivity, I first need to talk about the fact that, a shared value is that we both care that you're getting the most out of everyone on your team. And there's not a leader who would say, nah, I don't care about 20%, like throw them under the bus. No, they care about it. And so if you can unite on some common value, and so to go back to our earlier question, if you're starting a job, the common value is They want you to be successful and contribute. You want to be successful and contribute. So, starting with that common understanding and going from there to say, okay, given that, here's what else I know, is really a beautiful place to start. And then I think it's about bringing a solution to the table. It's not just saying, this isn't going to work. I can't do this. It's saying, here's what I've noticed and here's what I think might help. Can we go in this direction? So suggesting a path forward is super critical. And I think then remaining open to discussion. And one of the models that I'll also be writing about over on Substack is remaining open to discussion. Remaining open to discussion through the ask model. Now, the ask model came from looking at invisible disability and realizing that the most powerful question a leader could ask their employee is, what do you need to succeed? Gosh, if we've got that question, boy, speaking up is going to be a whole lot easier, right? So I'm kind of coming at this from both ends, from the leader end to be inviting, and from the individual's end to be comfortable enough to ask for what you want. And so ask is anticipate based on what you already know, anticipate what you might need or what the person you're thinking about, what they might need. And this ask model is iterative. So taking that question, what do you need to succeed? I took the word ask. A is for anticipate. S is for suggest and source solutions. So just like I mentioned, come with an idea of what will help. Also, when you're thinking about somebody else, anticipate what they might need. Oh my gosh, I noticed somebody has mentioned they've been feeling down. Maybe the depression resources that are available to you in your area would be helpful to pass on. Or maybe it's an open ear, maybe it's a conversation, um, uh, showing your support for that. So anticipate, suggest, and K. K stands for knowing. Better knowing yourself. There's the connection to that work style profile again. Better knowing yourself and better knowing the others with whom you work, interact, family, friends, colleagues, all of it. We can do a better job at continually moving through this ask loop to be able to better understand each other and invite our best performance. I want to just remind everybody that that free questionnaire is there and for you. It's called the Happy Space Work Style Profile. If you're watching the YouTube video, you will actually see a QR code at this point. And we're at on the clock, so it'll be 53 minutes in to the video. You will see a QR code and you can just pop a picture, open your camera and take a picture of that or scan that QR code. It'll take you right to the page, clarekumar.com/work style profile. And absolutely, you're invited to complete that to help articulate what you need to do your best work. And then I'm also sharing on the next slide the link to Total Teamwork. And again, it's clarekumar.com /total teamwork. I try to make these things intuitive really for my own brain, but also hopefully for you. And that's where you could find more out about the program where I can work with a leader and their team on co-creating how you work together to address and make room for all of these needs, to build a place where actually the speaking up is becomes an easy, natural thing to do. It's not out of place. We're expecting people to speak up for what they need. And in fact, we might speak up for our friend who we know, oh my gosh, I know Raphael doesn't like anchovies. Let's make sure the Caesar salad has no anchovies in the dressing. Like little things that we can do for each other. We can speak up as an ally for others. So I hope you'll check out all of those things. And for sure, clarekumar.com/fishbowl. And we've got 6 valuable, juicy minutes left, and I have time for a question or two. So, Raphael, I'll check with you first. Do we have any questions about speaking up?
Not right now.
Not right now. Did anything come up for you, Raphael, in this? Is there something that you've either spoken up for finally and realized, oh my gosh, that was so good. I'm glad I did it. Or something that's still maybe, you're thinking about and you haven't spoken up for?
Oh, actually, yes, I had a question, and I don't know if maybe it's kind of like cultural for the people in here that don't know. I'm from Venezuela, so in here, and most of the bosses or directors and that use the strategy of intimidation, and in order to exert their power. And I know that you were talking about calming your amygdala, and in order
Mhm,
to talk to them, but
mhm,
sometimes it just gets too scary to talk to them. And I think
mhm,
that you maybe noticed that in the first time that I asked something with you, like I
mhm.
was like stuttering and like, okay, Claire, I don't know how to say that, but it's because I'm accustomed, and what I know is that to be afraid of the one who hires me. So
Right.
maybe and there was one time that what I actually did is that I talked to this boss and told him like, okay, I need to tell you something, and I'm going to read it off my notes of my Apple Notes, because I don't know how to actually enunciate it right now, but I don't know if you had any more tips about it.
Oh, you raise up a beautiful point, and it's probably something I should add in here. Preparing. So I talked a little bit about not having the vocabulary and the clarity. And to get to that, preparing is your best friend. Absolutely. Here's a couple of things. If you're calming your amygdala and you're upset, I want you to write a version that is throwaway. I don't want you to write it in your email. I want you to write it in a separate place on a notepad or in a word processing software. And I want you to get some of the emotion out in that first draft. And then once you're calm, then I want you to compose. And then you know what, to rely on your notes, nothing wrong with that, because in the moment that anxiety could come back, that fear could come back, and you could feel like everything that you meant to say just went out of your head. So what better than to have all your notes prepared in front of you? If you need to read something, my gosh, if somebody did that with me, I would first remark on how much care they took to communicate, and most of all to honor themselves. And I think I respect that when I see it in people. I don't know if you've seen somebody and have a boundary. We kind of admire the rigidity and care and steadfastness to taking care of self, even if they have to say no to us. It's like, ah, but I get it. So amazing, amazing example, Raphael. Thank you so much.
No, thank you for the tip. Now I know what I'm going to do if I if I need to talk to you. So
Well, you know what? I will have to say, so Raphael and I have worked together since February 1st. And, we were supposed to start in January. And one of the first tough things came up was a very difficult private, personal situation for Raphael. And I had to let him know. I fell in love with Raphael in our interview and his energy. And I had to let him know that I was willing to give him space and time. And when he was able to come back, it meant more work for me for a certain period of time, and not knowing, it was a little bit uncomfortable. But boy, I wanted him to know that I would be the kind of person that can make room for life happening. And everybody I work with, I like to build that kind of relationship so that Raphael can let me know when he needs something. It happened again yesterday. Something came up with family and it was important. We still have things we need to get done, but we can time shift. And I can tell you, when you've got that relationship, you're putting money in that bank all that time. And then you can make deposits for those times where I'm frazzled and grumpy and maybe not articulate. And Raphael will know, it's okay, Claire. You've had my back. I can have yours in this moment. And what a beautiful relationship that is.
yeah, no, absolutely. Like I think that the main goal in here is to actually bounce it back and forth. Like this is a
Mhm.
game. Like in we need to do teamwork. We're team players in here, so
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you, everyone. We just hit 3 o'clock, and I want to honor everybody's time. And thank you all so much for joining. And just to remind you, we've got another one in 2 weeks. We're going to be talking about the ABCs of behavior change, building happy habits for creating new behaviors that actually stick. And I'm going to draw on lots of coaching conversations and how I came up with this model. And we'll go through that on June 26th 2 p.m. Eastern. And I hope to see you all back here then. Till then, check us out on clarekumar.com/fishbowl live and have a beautiful rest of your day.